Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November the 8th. It is about 10:23 a.m. Now, today I'm going to talk about the civil system. And my topics are it's that an agreed on social structure, going to talk about the police and criminal and ordinary systems, ordinary citizens, and how police occupy a unique position in our social structure, the laws, how we need new laws, and that's what we're going to focus on. Now, by a civil system, I mean that it's going to be and is an agreed on social structure. It's got laws, it's got a judicial system, it's got criminal system, and whatever the agreed on social structure is, as agreed by the majority of the people who are voting, that's the way it is. So those are the laws we live under. Antisocial behavior, you know how they talk about that? Antisocial. That's when somebody who's a anomaly within that system, who don't obey the rules, who don't do the things that the regular people do. The truth is, with anybody, people can disobey laws and just do whatever they will. There's nothing, absolutely nothing physically stopping you from walking out the door and just shooting everybody you see. But it's against the social structure because we all agreed on a certain way of behavior. So everybody that's living within the structure and apply and obeying the rules won't do that. You see, although you physically can. You can walk out there and take your car and plow into anything, like a bunch of people waiting on the bus. But it's not a part of what the agreed on social structures rules are. The reason why you have the rules is because people live in groups, thrive, as opposed to being up in the woods somewhere or separate. So those of us that decided to live in a social group have to have agreed on social rules so that the social group can thrive and prosper and be under control. When we have people who are anomalies from that and who don't obey those rules, and those are the ones that are what we call antisocial, are engaging in antisocial behavior. Those mass murderers and things, anybody can be that, but we don't do it because it's antisocial. It's against the group. So that's what I mean by a social system. The civil system is a part of that. And these are the legislative people, the people who are voted in, the boards, all of the institutions that help govern the social system. Okay? Now, the police is one of the people who help enforce it, in theory. They are the only ones, and I'm talking about why, this is going to be a discussion on why black people are so upset about police officers shooting people who are unarmed and otherwise shouldn't have been shot. And the reason why we're upset is twofold. One part is that the person got shot by an officer, and the second part is that the officer got away with it and is driving us up a wall because it's unjust. That's why I don't even call it a justice system or I don't call it a justice system. I call it a law system. The difference between law and justice, we argue it wrong among ourselves. And I'll come back to this in a second. Let me drink some water. Okay, I'm back. I was talking about the difference between a legal system and a justice system. A lot of times we inadvertently attach a moral component to a law, implying that because it's a law, it's righteous or moral, and they're not. Laws and morality don't have anything to do with each other objectively. Some laws do happen to have a moral component. That is a law that's right, like it's against the law to run on the sidewalk, to drive on the sidewalk and hit people and kill them, or it's against the law to just willy-nilly shoot people. That's a moral component to it, because it's immoral to also just willy-nilly just shoot innocent people for no reason, unless they're attacking you or something. Okay, those are laws that have a moral component, but a lot of laws don't. And so always separate the two. Not all laws are moral, and not all morals are legal. Moral actions are necessarily legal. And a lot of times laws don't even have a thing to do with each other, with moral things. Excuse me. So don't automatically attach the two. They're not necessarily like that. A lot of times we were learning in school as a child that laws were put there to keep us moral, but in fact, that's not the case. What they vote, a law is just something that the social structure voted on and decided it was legal or not legal. Okay, so for example, this is an easy one. Some states don't have laws on the book against bestiality, but but bestiality is an immoral action, because it's an innocent creature that you are using to personally satisfy your own lust without its permission, or because you have coerced it to a state that it is no longer resisting you, but it's still rape. So it's important that we separate legal versus justice. Right now, our legal system is not moral because it's not just. We've got people in jail for things, for minor crimes, where and people who had did major crimes are barely getting a slap on the wrist. There are laws where, I mean, there's people, young black men in jail for being in the vicinity of an action that a white person was committing. The white person is out of jail and the black person is still in jail. Yes. Black person is still in jail because he was in the vicinity of a white person committing a crime, and he's in jail because he was told he was encouraging the white person to commit the crime. The white person is out of jail and he's in jail. And talking about the rape of some white girl by a white boy, and the black man was gone, but they told he encouraged it, so he's in jail for it. The first time I noticed this phenomenon was when the Navy people of Tail Hook, I think it's called Tail Hook, when they when the sexual assault and sexual harassment charges were filed by women of Tail Hook. I think it's called Tail Hook. The Navy, it was a long time ago, but it's one of the dots that I had in my mind that I connect with this stuff now. And anyway, the only person that got charged was a young black naval officer, and he was the one that did the least stuff. He was not participating. Multitudes of white people were participating and doing things to these women. This young black male didn't. But he was the only one charged. That's what I mean. That not is not necessarily legal. Black people get charged heavily for stuff that they barely did. And these are the kind of people that are in jail and in trouble right now, all across the board. There's a lot of innocent people in jail for stuff they didn't do. And don't let us get started on those young men, the young men of Manhattan and Central Park, as they went running around acting silly, got charged with rape when in fact none of them touched this lady. And even the lady said they didn't touch her, but by the time they got through insisting on prosecuting these guys, she wasn't even sure. But the DNA evidence finally exonerated them. But meanwhile, they done spent years in jail. Right now, to this day, black men are getting out of jail because DNA evidence is clearing them. But the system put them in jail in the first place on little or no evidence. And the system was comfortable with that. So I'm saying that the criminal legal system is not a just system, so I don't call it a justice system. That's what I mean about the current agreed on social structure. Now we'll talk about police. The reason why black people are so upset about the police shooting and getting away with of these unarmed people is because of the extreme injustice of it. Again, we like balance, we like justice. When we see imbalance, we flip out. And this one is a grave imbalance. First off, the biggest thing about it is that the police officer in our social structure occupies a unique position. They're the only one in this social structure that can stop you and talk to you, and you can't legally walk away. You remember when people talk about black on black crime, and that's the first clue that they don't really want to have a solution. That really is. That's the first flag that they don't really want to have a solution. They just want you on board to finish getting killed and be okay with it. They don't really want a solution. So when somebody says that in any capacity, black on black crime, they don't really want a solution. They want you to get killed. And that's a flag. That's a red flag. When they say black on black crime, just get ready to walk away because they just gave you their first flag. So that's something to notice. Now, the opportunity, but some address it a bit and why it's a flag and why it's a problem is this: the operative word in what about black on black crime is crime. The operative word, the main word to see is crime. That means that's a criminal action. An officer doing that same thing is a legal action, and that's a problem. One is a criminal, one is an officer. If you don't get that, you won't get the rest of it. And so that's why I'm saying stop talking to white people about that and take matters in your own hands and start fixing this system yourself, ourselves. Because white people who are saying that kind of stuff aren't really about a solution. They're about you being complacent with it. Okay? And saying, and the black on black crime thing is the first flag to show that. If you want to hear more about that, and one of the best presentations I've seen on that is Young Pharaoh's version about it. He was great, and so just look that up. Young Pharaoh talking about crime. It was great. So with officers occupying this unique place in our society, we have to address that. So what I wrote down here about the police, and I got a um, topic one was agreed on social structure, and topic two is police. And I'm gonna write down I'm gonna read what I wrote. The only one who can stop you, and it's illegal for you to walk away. They can touch you, and it's illegal for you to touch them back. They can ask you questions, and you are legally compelled to answer or plead the fifth. They can take you elsewhere, and you have to go. And I wrote down this is a big responsibility that's being abused, and finally, that's a problem on this topic. So let's go back. If you're walking down the street and a police officer asks you to stop and talk to him about whatever, you're supposed to stop and talk to him and answer. Only people in this whole society that can do that, and you have to stop and answer. A criminal can't do that, and an ordinary citizen can't do that. A policeman who's identified himself or is in clothes as a policeman can stop you. You walking down the street minding your own business, and he can stop you and ask where you going, what are you doing, da da da. He can ask you for ID. You can plead the fifth, but you still have to address this officer talking to you. If he doesn't like your response, he can put you in a squad car and take you away. He can put you in a squad car and take you away. They're the only people in this whole society that can stop you and compel you where it's illegal for you not to stop and talk to them. A criminal can't, and any other person can't. If they touch you, you can't knock the hell out of them legally. That's a unique position, and that's a problem if they abuse it. A major problem. If a police officer reaches forward and touches your child, you can't knock the shit out of them like you could anybody else, not legally. So, with that legal right that they have to do these things, they have to take it more seriously than abusing it. Every time they stop you and or touch you, it's got to be a very sacred action with proper restraint. They can't stop you like I'm seeing them now just because they're bored. They shouldn't be able to stop you or put their hands on you just because they're irritated. We don't care if they have human fallacies and emotions. They have a sacred trust in our society because they occupy a sacred, unique position that they are abusing, and that's the problem. So if a criminal stops me and asks me something or reaches forward, I got every right and obligation in many cases to knock the living hell out of them and do what I can. At least I can fight legally and defend myself. Police officer, you can't legally even defend yourself. People do many times, but they're mostly white people. If police officers actually had a predator, it's other white people. White people are the police officers' real predator. We aren't. Black people aren't. We're really trying to obey the law and do things right. That is the people that they're stopping. The real criminals, they're leaving alone because the real criminal don't care. Real criminal black people who are actually committing crimes that actually have guns, they not getting shot because the police officer too cowardly to approach them, even if they are doing something wrong. But they will approach the people who look harmless, and they are approaching you because you look harmless. Get that through your head. That was apparent back in the 90s to me. I think a police officer had shot a man behind the wheel of a car because he said the car was coming at him, but the man was actually stuck in a ditch where his car wasn't really moving. And so the officer had with the guy's car not even moving, the officer had a chance to walk away and go the other way, but he claimed he was in fear for his life, and he shot the man behind the wheel with his car stuck in the ditch. And that's when I said he's not shooting him because he feared for his life. He's shooting him because he didn't fear for his life. He just wanted him dead, as my hunter friend said. He just wanted to kill it. And so when the odds are uneven and it's not a fair fight, they get more aggressive. Really. So they are attacking people who look harmless. And they're right, they are harmless at that time. But the real criminals and stuff that who are really not harmless, they are getting a free ride because these little cowardly so and so's won't even fool with them because, well, they might get shot themselves. After a criminal has decided to be a criminal, they don't take no prisoners. So that's, well, they're harmful to police officers, and police officers are scared to fool with them. So, with this in mind, I'm saying that this is a big responsibility and it's being abused because of the unique position police officers are in our society. I can't knock the hell out of you legally, even though you put your hands on me. My thing is this: among the laws that we should get changed would be, and if I forget, that's why I'm adding now because I forgot to write it down. But I'm going to talk about new laws in a little while. One of them is that if a police officer stops you and commits an illegal act, then they forfeit their right to hide behind the badge and become a regular citizen. They forfeit officer status. They're no longer an officer, they are a regular citizen. And that means that they have lost the ability to enforce the law or even be protected by their badge or that unique position in society. They no longer have the right to stop or put their hands on you because now they are a citizen and you can treat them as a citizen legally. So, with that in mind, as some officer grabbed your 13-year-old daughter and slammed her in the ground, getting cheap thrills out of manhandling a young black female, her father or her mother or anybody else had every right to come out and knock the hell out of them. And he didn't, and he wouldn't have protection of the badge because he forfeited his right to enforce the law or even be protected by the badge because he committed an illegal act. Grabbing a kid who's clearly unarmed and slamming her on the ground, scantily clad, getting cheap thrills out of manhandling her, that is illegal. He just abused a kid, and he also was manhandling a woman, a female. Those both are illegal acts. He should have been. And of course, it didn't happen that way because he did maintain officer status because it wasn't a law on the books, but it should be. And that's one of the ones I want there. That if you commit a crime and I see you, you have forfeited your right to be an officer, and you have forfeited your status as officer, and thus you are not protected by that responsibility, unique position in society. So you can't hide behind your badge. I got every right to knock the hell out of you for touching my child. And if you want to escalate it, I have every right to join you in escalating it. So I'm going to talk about some more laws in a minute. Let me take a sip here. I'm catching a cold, and so my voice is going. So, like if a criminal stops you, you can knock the hell out of them because they're a criminal or an ordinary citizen. An ordinary citizen can't touch you without risk of your retaliation. It should be the same for officers. If they aren't focusing on what they need to be talking to you about, then they are abusing and harassing you. And that's what black people are suffering, the abuse and harassment. Look at the videos of police officer interaction with black people, even kids, and it's very abusive and harassment like. They're not helping anything. They're not solving crimes. They're not even preventing crime. They are harassing people. We should not need to put up with that just because they are bored or irritated or something. It's about them getting themselves under control or else not being able to legally hide behind a badge when we retaliate or try to defend ourselves. Because they're hiding behind a badge when we, um, by every right in any other context, would be free to defend ourselves. When you come and put your hands on me, I can't legally defend myself as I would be in any other context as I interact with people. I probably wouldn't win the fight anyway, but I can legally try to defend myself against anybody else who would attack me. If a person came up and grabbed my arms, I have every right to swing my arm and hit them. With an officer, I don't. And so if this officer is abusing that right as they attack me, then that's an unjust act. And that's why black people are having a fit. Because you have tied my hands while this person is abusing me and is taking advantage of it and hiding behind a badge when I get ready to knock the shit out of him. And I honestly can't beat up a police officer, but they should at least have the grace to try to do the right thing, and they're not. So they should lose that officer status the moment they abuse it. Yes, they should lose that. And not only should I have the right to hit them, anybody around me who wants to protect me should have the right to hit them. Like that officer who was beating that lady's face in the ground with as he pinned her down doing MMA on a old lady who clearly can't defend herself, ground and pound. Anybody should have had the legal right to walk up and blow his head off because he was committing an illegal act and he lost officer status in my mind. So if an officer knows that he could easily lose officer status by committing crimes himself, that'll be a restraint from them committing crime and harassing and abusing. There's a video of an officer kicking at a 10-year-old boy. The child is distraught and upset and in tears, and he's yelling at him and kicking at him. This man should have lost officer status, and his family should have been able to address him for his deed and yelled at him and talked mean to him legally. Because to me, you lose officer status. So committing crimes yourself in any way makes you lose officer status. And you can no longer have that badge and officer status protecting you because you're no longer an officer. You are an ordinary person who just committed a crime. And the people that you're committing a crime against are the people who are witness it, has every right to treat you like a regular citizen who did that same action. And that's the law that needs to be changed. Right now it's not the law, and it didn't go down that way. And but in the future it should be. So if you take that same scenario of some of these things I just mentioned, and that person was an ordinary citizen or an ordinary person, you could yank that officer off of the person, yank that person off of the person they're abusing and beating on. You can shove them away from a little girl that he's getting cheap thrills wrestling around. And so they need to lose that because they're not handling that privilege correctly. So they've abused it, so they need to forfeit that privilege. And as soon as you abuse it, you forfeit it. So so let me see. Let me see where I'm at. Yeah, and so now I'm gonna talk about the new laws that need to happen. Like for example, and I'm just gonna give a list of them. Police officers should only stop persons for a specific violation. That is, if the person is committing a specific violation, the officer should stop them and address that specific violation. They need to, the officer needs to say what they're stopping them for within 2 sentences. If you stop a man for selling CDs, you need to walk up to him and say, "You are selling CDs in this area, and then that's against the code, and that's a violation of such and such." And then either A, write a ticket, or B, ask him to desist, and then uh, uh, um, ask him to stop it and go away. And then if they, escalate, the citizen escalate, then you can react and say, "Okay, I'm taking you in to headquarters." Or B, "You need to stop and I'm writing you this citation." But you need to address the specific violation, not the harassing stuff that they've been doing, where they're talking all kind of crap that's not nothing to do with the violation. Okay, so they need to stop for specific violations and tell what the violation is. Any conversation that they have with the citizen should be, or the violator should be, uh, only to refer to that specific violation, not the what are you doing over, not the little harassing things like where you going, what you got in your pocket, why you speaking to that guy, da da da. When you look at those videos of interactions with black people that officers have, they're talking about stuff that ain't got nothing to do with a violation. They're fishing. They having these little inadvertent fishing conversations, trying to find stuff. But these are conversations that they're having with these people just because they're bored and ain't got nothing to do, so they're walking around harassing people. They're walking around harassing people for no reason, just because they're bored. And so any conversation you have has got to have only to do with a violation. That is, if you stop them. Yes, you can walk by and say hello and how are you and keep going, or even have a general conversation if you're standing next to each other. But if you stop somebody in an action, then any conversation or questions you have need to be referring to that specific reason you stopped them, not the harassing stuff that they've been doing. And and they've been harassing people. talking about stuff that ain't got nothing to do with nothing that's criminal except this intimidation kind of conversation, and that needs to stop. So that's a new law that I'm suggesting. An officer should no longer stop cars on the highway. They've been abusing that for years. I have never seen or heard so many damn busted tail lights in my life. And when you think about as you drive down the highway, it's very, very, very rare that there is even anything like a busted tail light. Most people, I mean, I have never seen a busted tail light in my life, and I've been driving for since the 70s. And that's a long time. Only time you might see a busted tail light was a car that's been in an accident and the driver already knows it's an accident and they haven't got their tail light fixed because they got a big dent all around where the tail light is. But most times you just don't see busted tail lights. There's no reason to have a busted tail light because the tail light's in the back of the car. What's going to hit it when you're going forward? But it might be a rare occasion for a busted tail light. Now, what you might have is a tail light that's not working. That's possible, but that's not some reason to get yourself shot. So, if you do see somebody with a busted tail light, walk to them, say you have a busted tail light, and then walk away. If you feel like you must tell them they got a busted tail light. But what I would suggest is that in this new law, since stops have been so abusive and so one-sided, people getting shot for a tail light violation, write a ticket. As you see it, write a ticket and have it mailed in. Same thing with speeding. Just like they have speed cameras that mail it in, these violations need to be mailed in because officers can't be trusted to um, keep themselves under control long enough to even do any good. I mean, you're telling somebody that got a busted tail light for their safety and you wound up shooting them, then you have defeated the purpose. So leave them alone. No, no more stops about stupid junk. Have it mailed in. Have a citation mailed in. You don't need to, and honestly, you really don't need to see registration for the car. You can type that in. You can take their VIN in, and you already see where the registration status is. And so you don't really need to do all of that. All of that's right online. A lot of that stuff is harassment. Okay, so I'm gonna say unless somebody is driving like they're getting ready, driving like they done robbed a bank, you don't need to stop cars anymore. No, but this one is if the body cam is not working, is not on or working for any reason, then the violation falls in favor of the citizen against the officer. That is, if say something happened and the person either did or didn't die as a result, if that body cam wasn't working, then the officers are immediately accountable for whatever happened, and it's his fault. It falls against him and in favor of the citizen automatically. So if you need to have your body cam on so that we can look at all sides of the story. There should be a citizen review board to accept specific officers working in the area. That is, if we as citizens decide you can work and patrol our community, it should be up to us. And so we need to look at your resume, how you did on test, what your drug test status is, all of that. You shouldn't be able to work in our community without our permission. And I want that to be a citizen review board. But before all of this can happen, we have to get control of our own communities. There are a lot of communities in America that are mostly black, but we don't have control of their legislations and their boards and their civic leaders. And we need to get control of that so that we can write our own laws so that we can control who and what happens in our community. A lot of things happen in these communities that should be under black people control and not the black people sellout control, but real black people who really want the best for their community. A lot of stuff we can do ourselves, and that's one that we can do. We can vote and put out people and put in people. and we can protect our community. Like, for example, a lot of communities are controlled by Republicans and racists and Tea Partiers. Well, they were aggressive and got into those offices. A lot of times we didn't vote. I'm gonna start vocal. I do vote locally, but I don't even remember voting for a governor. I think they have a different governor election than they have normally, but I'm gonna start paying attention to it, and so I can go in there and vote for the governor. Because sometimes we have a governor, and I'm surprised he's there. So I haven't been paying attention when we vote for governor and local boards and things like that. But I will be now. I just don't remember it. So I think they have a different election time than a president election. So that's something I'm going to have to work on. So will the rest of the people in my community and communities of black people across the country. We have things we need to do to get our legislation bodies under control so that we can control our officers. Even if these officers are under control in this one particular community, it needs to happen that way. So first we need to get control of our areas first. And the way you do that is to vote and control it. Okay, that's all I had to say about on this one about civic stuff and social structure because this is the root of why I'm talking is because I see that it's a great injustice going on in this country against black people. I would go to Africa, but Africa's got white people in it too. Because I really do not want to be in an area that's controlled by white people because they don't have the spiritual morality at this time. Their hate file got downloaded in their brain and they aren't helpful when it comes to making sure things are just and fair. So, with that in mind, I don't want to be around them and I really don't like fooling with them. And if that's the case, I'll need to go someplace else, but there's no place to go where they aren't in the middle of it doing their vile, wicked things. All around the world, as I look, is more and more vile, wicked things all around the world. Unfortunately, black people of dark skin don't understand that just because you have a different name for your tribe or group doesn't mean that you're different actually. Black people, people with melanin in their skin, are in equal trouble for the same reason, despite what you call yourself. It's not going to change your phenotype or your genotype. Your genotype and phenotype is melanin. That is, it's darker than white. As long as you are darker than white, you are genetic dominant to white. Whatever you name yourself, whatever religion or race or nation or whatever you want to call yourself, you can call yourself white. You can call yourself white as snow. But soon as you appear and they see this melanin in your skin that they know is genetic dominant to their white skin, you are their enemy too. Black people know it because they made it known. That is, a lot of black people know it because they made it known. Other black people are still um, in the abyss mentally. The mental virus still got them, but most black people know that something's off. Okay, so that is the black people in America because we've already been through ours, are going through ours, and so we do have a smidgen of a clue. Most of us, other people have a lot of us have a big clue, and a lot of us are really working to help save us, but we got to get it through our head that we're not in trouble with white people because of some title. We're in trouble with white people because we have melanin, and that's all around the world. Okay? Please see and develop an affinity to other people who have melanin. And stop calling yourself wrong things because they do divide and rule and divide and conquer, and they are in the middle of Africa, South Africa, still dividing and ruling and dividing and conquering. So they control South Africa even though they are the minority. I would like to go to Africa, but if Africans are thinking as stupid as we are, there's no place to run because there's no place to go. So I'm going to try to help fix this place. Okay, so that's all. Now I'm done, and I'll come back and do another one later. But unfortunately, I'm almost done with everything I gotta say. All right, bye bye.